So pay attention when you feel the signs of depression, discouraged, low energy, self-critical, irritable with other people. It's important to note, oh, just as you would if you had a fever, something's wrong here. I'm just not my usual me. But all too often, when we hit a disturbing circumstance, we fold. We give up on what we want. Sometimes that's a good idea because there just don't seem to be any other options, or if the other option is to get into a fight, may not be worth it. Giving up in response to something you want triggers depression.
They feel really good about it if they're honest, if they're fair to themselves. What's an area of your life you really feel happy about? And I want you to think about it for a moment, truthfully. What's an area in your life today that if you wanted to be happy about it, you really could feel proud about it? You could feel like it's an area you're doing darn well in. And if you're really hard on yourself, there's still an area. What's an area? I want you to think of it right now. And I want you to think of that area, whether it's your body or your finances or your career or your intimate relationship or your relationship with your kids or your relationship with your creator, whatever it is. I want you to think about, why are you happy with that area of your life right now today? Why are you happy with that area of your life right now today? Really think about it. My life doesn't match how I'm supposed to be. That's when people get a little crazy. See, think about it. If you grew up taking care of folding your own clothes, making your own meals, going to the store, doing the grocery shopping, cleaning the bedroom, cleaning the house, vacuuming, taking out the trash, and you did that your whole life, then if you have to do that later on, you don't feel like you have economic pain because you don't have a maid. But if you grew up in an environment where everything was done for you, you never have to work, and now suddenly you have to work incredibly hard to just pay enough money to pay your bills, and all of a sudden food is building up and the house is dirty and your clothes aren't folded and nothing matches, you might find yourself really angry and frustrated because you have a different story about how life's supposed to be than how it is. Someone else will say, well, I'll tell you why, because I'm in a situation now where, I'm 30 pounds heavier than I should be. Should be is the key word. There are people in all cultures who love being big. There are people that will walk around and someone else might think they're massively overweight, but they're going, I own this, honey. And they really, truly, they match their blueprint. Big is beautiful, because their idea is big is beautiful. I'm big, that's beautiful, matches my blueprint. Rock and roll, I'm happy as can be. Somebody else can look like a twig and be stressed out saying, I hate my body. Because their blueprint says I should be the skinniest thing on earth and I'm not skinny enough. Am I making sense? When your life conditions don't match your blueprint, you're gonna have pain. But here's when you suffer. When I ask people, who here has been through the dark night of the soul? Who's been here in a situation where you feel like life isn't worth living, or we feel like a pain that just will never go away? And a lot of people write down those experiences, like Joaquin, so you begin to understand what the issue is I'm talking about here. Joaquin, if you recall, was in a situation where this man felt like there was no reason to live. He couldn't work, he couldn't do anything, his life was worthless. Why did he think that? Because he had a blueprint. And his blueprint said, I need to be an NBA basketball player, at least a professional basketball player. I need to be able to make money and have this great lifestyle, because that's what makes me worthwhile as a human being. That's what makes my family respect me. My mother, my uncles, my aunts. I'm the successful one in the family and I make the money. I support everybody. He's a good man. He didn't come just to be successful. He took care of his mother, his family. He tried to be an inspiration for people. Joaquin Hawkins is a man who was always going out on his free time and training kids and showing them the pathway to freedom, how they could play basketball and get free like he did and get out of the inner city. So this man is not a selfish man, but he knew this is the way to be worthwhile. This is the way to be able to give to people. This is the way to take care of your family. And all of a sudden, one night, what happened? That way was taken from him. He has a stroke. In the middle of the night, his life conditions make it impossible to be who he has to be, or he feels like he's worthless. You get it? We have an identity. We have a story of how we're supposed to be, and if life somehow gets in the way of that story, we feel pain. But if we feel we have no control, that's when we go into suffering. See, it's one thing to say my life doesn't match my blueprint, I gotta lose weight. That might stress you out. Or my life doesn't match my blueprint. I'm not in a relationship, I gotta get in one. That might motivate you even. You might not like it, but you're gonna find a way to get in one. Or my career doesn't match how I should be. You could change it. But when you start believing that your life doesn't match your blueprint and you have no control to change it, you're helpless, that's when people suffer. We're supposed to get married and have children and we're gonna have our own business, and all of a sudden, life doesn't match the blueprint. And suddenly, there's depression. Because in their case, they said there's nothing we could do. But they were wrong. They were wrong because they discovered, and Frank discovered, I can make a difference in my life. The chair, even though I didn't create this and didn't ask for it, this chair does not define me. I can become more than I was before. I can have the impact with my wife. I can have children. We had to change his blueprint because we couldn't change all the conditions of his life. Does that make sense? I couldn't get him to physically walk again. Maybe someday he will, but we can't count on that. What we gotta count on is that he can be fulfilled by seeing he isn't helpless. And I did that through a series of experiences that violated what he thought he couldn't do. The same thing was true with almost every one of the people we worked with at some level. And in Joaquin's example, it was also true.
So what is darkness? Well, scientists teach us that darkness is not a thing. I know you thought it was a thing, but it's not a thing. Darkness is not a thing. It is the absence of a thing. Darkness is defined as the absence of light. It is only the consequences or the results of the absence of that which is legitimate. Light is a thing because it is quantifiable. It can be felt. It can be touched. It can be measured. It can be there. How many watts is that coming at me? You can measure how much light, the decibels of light. Sound is a thing because it can be measured. Light is a thing because it can be measured. And it came at the speed of light. If you can measure its speed, it's a thing. You never hear anybody say it came at the speed of darkness. Because darkness doesn't have a speed. It doesn't have a decimal. It doesn't have a wattage. Because darkness is not a thing. It is the absence of a thing. So in order to experience darkness, it is when we go through something where we have the absence of a thing. Because darkness is not a thing, it's a void. It's an emptiness. It's an ambiguous existence, a place whereby I cannot see my way clear. Not because the darkness has power, it has no power, having neither light, having neither heat, it has no power, it's absence. How many of God's people are aching over absence? What isn't there can be as painful as what is. I can feel it in my bones. I can sense it in my spirit. Something is about to happen. I'm just glad to be in the place. Set me in the balcony. I can still get my blessing. Something is about to happen. In fact, when God gets ready to prepare you for light, He puts you in the dark. Like an old camera. When a camera got ready to develop the film, you developed it in the dark. You showed it in the light, but it was developed in the dark. If you gave it too much light too soon, you ruined the exposure because it was developed in the dark. Some of you don't recognize it, but you're being developed in the dark. You prayed for the light, but God is developing you in the dark. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? This season that you're in is preparation for what God is about to do in your life. He's developing you in the dark. Oh no, don't put me up there too soon. I don't want light when I need darkness. I came to tell you that your first grade teacher might have lied when she said you couldn't learn, or you couldn't think, or you couldn't be, or you couldn't do, or your first boyfriend or your first girlfriend might have lied when they said you were nobody. They met you before God put you in the dark. But after this, you shall come forth